IVM.
Can AI tell me if the price of Bitcoin is up or down? Can it tell me when is a good time to buy more Ethereum? The answer to both those questions is yes. AI is an amazing field that makes so many processes seamless and easy, and it can be tremendously useful to know exactly how it works. Luckily, Intel's Digital Readiness Program is here to empower everyone with skill sets, mindsets, and tool sets to use in an AI-fueled world. So you can be ready to develop AI for sports if you want to as well. The Intel AI for Youth program is an initiative that guides today's youth to an understanding of AI, how it's designed, and why it's important today. Intel's been working with the CBSE, Ministry of Education, and the Government of India to empower today's youth to build social impact solutions while demystifying what AI is. How do you take advantage of this? Purchase an Intel Core-powered PC and you get free access to 80+ hours of immersive and hands-on training about AI. On completion of the program, along with a certificate, you get access to AI toolsets to put what you learn to good use. So, don't wait. Log on to futurebanawonderful.intel.com. Future Banaw Wonderful by bringing home an Intel-powered PC. Hi, welcome to another episode of a show about crypto. Another week, another episode, another topic to discuss. With me today is CEO and co-founder of Mudrex, Mr. Edul Patel. Hi, Edul. How's it going?
Hey, Ron. It's going really, really well, and I'm super excited to be on the show.
I am super excited to have you on the show because my understanding is that it has been a reasonably big week for Bitcoin. And what I'd like to talk to you about today specifically is ETF, exchange-traded funds in Bitcoin, which are finally Bitcoin futures, to be more specific, which I believe are finally being traded on American exchanges, which is a start. So since this is a super basic show where we try to explain jargon to our listeners, let's start with the super basics. What is an ETF?
Yes. So I think before getting into an ETF, let's just try and understand why funds existed altogether. So
Sure.
Very early on, what was happening is that in the traditional equities world, people would try and do trading by themselves, and they would try and buy and sell. And of course, as we know, that doesn't work really well for most people, right? Like they just end up losing a ton of money. And to solve for that, what started to happen was that fund managers would start taking people's money and trade on their behalf on the exchanges. Now that, of course, led to a lot of speculation and eventually was one of the reasons why the large crash happened in 1929, right? And after that, a lot of acts came in that brought in regulations into the equities world, like the Exchanges Act and the Fund Management Act and so on and so forth, where in order to prevent people from losing money, what essentially the government said was that, okay, if you want to hand over money to someone as a fund manager, the better thing to do was that fund manager is coordinated and regulated by us. That fund manager takes money from you from an exchange, and then that exchange does the job of managing and maintaining and making sure that your money is being invested, right? So typically the way a mutual funds or something like that works is that you give in money, that money goes to a central depository, and whenever the fund manager wants to trade, he just goes out and does the trade, the depository executes it on the manager's behalf, right? And the exchange, of course, tracks the NAV. So effectively, an ETF is an exchange-traded fund where the fund is managed by a fund manager, but entry and exit into that fund is managed by an exchange. Now, the reason why this is a beautiful system is because as soon as there is an ETF that exists on the exchange, anyone and everyone who has access to the exchange can now potentially trade that ETF, right? And you don't need to go to the fund manager and work with them and get integrations with them and sign separate documents with them and so on and so forth. So it makes entry into the system really easy. And yeah, that's the benefit of an ETF as such.
So in an ETF, what I can do is if I have access to this exchange, I can just go out there and trade in it like I would any other stock, is what you're saying?
Correct.
Right? And that's how money is essentially going in and out of this exchange as well. Like that's how it's growing.
Yeah, exactly. So effectively, you buy and sell, you buy and then someone on the other end, of course, sells and buys. And then whatever is the net effective buy amount, that goes to the fund manager. At the end of the day, what is the net effective sell amount that comes back from the fund manager at the end of the day so that it can be settled at the end of the day in your accounts.
And specifically coming to what happened this week is the ProShare ETF in Bitcoin futures, not Bitcoin, Bitcoin futures, which is an important distinction to make. So also for our listeners and a little bit for me, what are Bitcoin futures versus an exchange, an ETF that deals directly in Bitcoin?
Yes, that's a great question. So, futures in general are effectively securities or instruments that track the price of an actual product in the futures. For example, some of the world's most popular futures are actually oil futures or coffee futures. Right. And like 30-day oil futures, 30-day coffee futures effectively try and track the price of oil 30 days from today or coffee 30 days from today. Now, it's not actually always 30 days from today because it's a specific date that they are trying to track it on. And historically, the reason why futures got developed at all was because commodities traders, and when I say commodities traders, oil companies, food grain manufacturers and traders, they wanted some kind of sort of price stability and predictability. They didn't want to just reach on and land up into the market one day and find that the prices suddenly crashed or the prices suddenly shot up, right? So that's why futures came into play at all. Now, Bitcoin futures was just another way for us to be able to track the price of Bitcoin. So the reason why futures are different than actual Bitcoin is because there is no, at the end of the day, settlement in Bitcoins. For example, when you buy a future, you only get the actual commodity at the date of expiry of the future. In this case, in Bitcoin futures, when you buy a Bitcoin future, you are not actually getting Bitcoin. But effectively, what you're doing is it gives you the ability to speculate on the price of Bitcoin without actually owning Bitcoin. So that's kind of sort of the benefit of futures. And in the ProShares case, the future that it is tracking is the CME futures. And the CME futures is one of the largest kinds of regulated futures set up out there for Bitcoin.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong. So when you're betting on futures, especially Bitcoin futures, instead of having skin in the game, you have skin in a game about the game.
Exactly. It's a skin in the game about the game.
Okay. Got it. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. That's actually quite interesting. So how does this work in terms of why specifically has this ETF in Bitcoin futures suddenly sparked, I'm not just going to say hype because it's not just hype, but this sort of overall sentiment of positivity in Bitcoin? What is it about ETFs specifically and them being allowed that suddenly makes this seem like regulatorily a positive step?
Exactly. So firstly, people have been trying to get Bitcoin and Bitcoin futures onto the exchange for the last 8-10 years now, right? Mm-hmm. And the reason why the SEC was always against it or in principle disapproved launching such ETFs was that they primarily said that there are two reasons why. The first reason was that if you are doing actual Bitcoin ETFs, that means that the fund manager on the other end needs to actually literally buy Bitcoin, which means that there are security implications, there are custody implications, there are storage implications, and so on and so forth, right? Which are challenging. And of course, the SEC doesn't have clear answers or regulations for that today. Now, on the other end, the other problem that the SEC also had was that Bitcoin was highly speculative, and because it was a global market, the SEC felt that it was a lot of times susceptible to manipulation by entities that were non-US, and as a result of that, not under the purview of the SEC. And as a result, SEC has just consistently been denying Bitcoin ETFs, just the normal Bitcoin ETFs to be launched. Now, the reason why the Bitcoin futures ETF is different is A, it's not actually buying Bitcoin. So as a result, there is no implication of storage and so on and so forth. B, it tracks the CME futures. The CME futures are in themselves a fairly regulated product. And as a result of that, the SEC has kind of sort of more reliance on the fact that it is not that susceptible to manipulation and pump and dump. And even if it is, and people are doing it, can be put to particular constraints by the SEC itself. So because these both kind of sort of issues were resolved, I guess we were able to first see this Bitcoin ETF, right? Now, the reason why it's seen as such a nice and positive step and nice and positive sentiment is A, it opens up Bitcoin to many, many, many more people now. Because now, if for someone who wants to buy or get exposure to Bitcoin, they don't need to go and create an account with Coinbase. An account with their existing broker just works, right? They don't need to care about security and storage. They can just simply buy the Bitcoin ProShares ETF and its price is tracked by the Bitcoin price. More importantly, because it's futures, it allows you to also short Bitcoin. So it's actually literally speculating on Bitcoin, right? But if you would have invested in a normal Bitcoin ETF, there's no way you could short it. So
sure.
these are some of the flexibilities that it gets into the system. And as a result of that, it opens up Bitcoin to a much larger audience. As a result of that, as more and more money comes in and more people get involved, that's a general positive sentiment for the asset class and the ecosystem in itself.
Thank you. That's a very, very helpful answer. So I know now if I want to invest in it, I no longer necessarily need to get onto an exchange and get my own Bitcoin. I can just go out there and invest in one of these, which is a fantastic thing to learn on a show about crypto, brought to you by CoinSwitch, an exchange for crypto. But no, I'm kidding. All right, we are in conversation with Edul Patel about the ETFs in Bitcoin futures that have just been launched. And we take a short break right now and we'll be back for more conversation.
Have you ever wondered where the business world is headed? How the ways in which we create, market, and sell to consumers will evolve? Or if we'll ever go back to wearing pants while working? For answers to all of this and more, tune into Advertising is Dead with me, Varun Dugirala. Every Tuesday, as I talk to entrepreneurs, leaders, and change makers from across business, media, marketing, and beyond. You can catch all episodes of Advertising is Dead on the IBM Podcast website, app, or wherever you get your podcast from.
All right, welcome back to a show about crypto. We are in conversation with Edul Patel about ETFs and Bitcoin futures. Here's my question, right? On the one hand, you mentioned that this does bring in a new audience. It allows a lot more, let's say for want of a better word, it allows casuals to get into the Bitcoin game, right? Where you don't necessarily have a broader understanding of it. But how does this sort of square off against the spirit of what we call Bitcoin cryptocurrency, right? Which is where you're talking about the entire point of this was to be heavily decentralized and sort of demarcated from Wall Street in a way. Versus with these funds and all coming back in, does this just turn into another Wall Street game? And is that eventually going to just eclipse sort of what we're seeing with the sort of spirit of what people are trying to do with cryptocurrency as a medium?
Yes.
I don't have an answer. It's just a question.
No, so the way at least I see is that, if you're wanting to move away from traditional finance, that effectively like a social revolution. And social revolutions more often than not don't happen as step functions. They happen as gradual changes, right? And more of the work that's happening on DeFi, more and more things where we are trying to link decentralized finance with traditional finance, either via Wall Street or via complete DeFi associates, is moving the needle slowly and steadily towards this eventual social revolution, right? And in my opinion, it's a great thing, because what happens is that as more and more people get involved into crypto during this way, they get to know about crypto, they get to learn about its positives and negatives, and then actually try and understand what's the value crypto and blockchain as a technology adds to the financial system. And maybe that convinces them to jump the boat and come to the other side faster.
Fair. Okay,
right?
That's a fair point.
That's kind of my understanding. And it's, as I said, right, things like this take many, many, many years, because at the end of the day, every system has an inertia, and inertia inherently means that it's resistant to change. So you need to slowly, steadily push and get the ball rolling.
Okay, well, that definitely seems to be a thing that's happening with this ETF. The other question I sort of have, you covered this partly, but I just want to get a clear sense of it. What is the clearest difference between a futures ETF and a Bitcoin ETF? And are those anywhere on the horizon yet?
Yes. So let's just generalize it. What's the difference between a futures ETF and a settled ETF? The difference between a futures ETF and an actual settled ETF is that at the end of the futures contract, someone gets the commodity. That's what happens in a settled ETF. But in like a futures ETF, you at the end of the day don't get it. It's a rolling commodity. It just continues to move on. So, for example, in coffee settled futures, at the end of the period, you would actually have to buy coffee and store it, right? From the other end. And having said that, in this case, there is no actual transfer. So people who are entering into the Bitcoin ETF will never get Bitcoin in like a Bitcoin wallet. It will never be stored on their exchange wallet. It's not that they can just move that Bitcoin from that one wallet to some other wallet. It's all linked up. All you're doing is that you're getting exposure to Bitcoin prices, and as a result of that, are able to speculate on Bitcoin prices. Effectively, that's the purpose of this ETF. The purpose of this is never to give you Bitcoin at the end of the day.
Understood. Thank you. That clears it up a lot. So ETFs are obviously one way of, or sort of one instrument tangentially related to Bitcoin, where you can speculate on it without necessarily having any skin in the game, as we said.
Yeah.
What other avenues are there that are, say, either gathering steam or could potentially gather steam in the same vein as investment opportunities for, say, the casual person or person who doesn't want to actually hold any Bitcoin?
Exactly. So the way, at least the way we are seeing the space evolve, is that what's happening is that early on, the people who came in were just traders or geeks, and they just wanted to either buy Bitcoin or trade Bitcoin and so on and so forth, right? But over time, what has happened is that most people who tried trading crypto just ended up losing more money than they ended up making it because it was so volatile, right? Like you will eventually end up buying high and selling low, buying high because of hype and selling low because of fear, right?
Stop attacking me personally, Edul. It's too early in the morning for such a personal attack.
Yeah,
I resent such a personal attack on me this early in the morning.
Happened with me as well, my friend. So we are all in the same mood. So effectively, what's happened is that this buying and selling again and again is something that most people can't do, and this is not something new. All of this exact same thing was happening in the equities world as well, right? People buying and selling were not able to make money, and we know famously that 95-97% of traders end up losing money rather than making, right? And to solve for that, simple to invest products like indexes came up, or mutual funds came up. And that actually truly opened up the asset class for the casual investor who does not have enough time, who has a day job and who wants to go ahead and do it, right? And as we are seeing time progress, more and more products like this are being built out. And at Mudrex, we are actually doing the job of creating these products, right? So one of the things that we recently launched is something called as a coin set, where the idea is that instead of putting in money in Bitcoin, you should put in money in, let's say, a large cap Bitcoin, a crypto large cap index, which is effectively what we call as crypto blue chip, which are the top 5 crypto tokens. And then just like how an index is managed and rebalanced, Mudrex does the job of rebalancing and managing. Right? And there are similar such products that are being built out there, which are actually truly opening up the space for retail investors. Because what's started to happen is that, as people get into Bitcoin and crypto, Bitcoin seems to be like the gateway drug for all practical purposes for crypto, right? Like you get in by buying Bitcoin, but then you understand what crypto is all about, and then you move into Ethereum, and then you move into altcoins, and then you just degen into some random token, and then you end up losing a lot of money, and then you circle back to square one, right?
Shiba Inu buyers, we're looking at you, Shiba Inu buyers. We're looking at you right now. We're looking you straight in the eye right now. And we're talking to you. We're calling you out by name. But that's sort of about it. And is that something that you see a lot of interest for, or a lot of appetite for in India as well?
Absolutely. So the more and more people that we speak to in India specifically, we are starting to see that this is the same problem, because the problem is similar to in the equities world as well, right? Like people don't know when they should buy Reliance stock or TCS stock or any other stock for that matter. So they ended up just moving towards mutual funds. And now they are ending up going towards indexes, right? And that just simplifies the investing space. What we are also seeing is that the same thing is actually true for fund managers. So we've been speaking to quite a few fund managers to try and understand how can we get crypto to their clientele. And over there also the same sentiment comes up कि यार सिर्फ Bitcoin खरीदना है तो make sense नहीं करता है. We are not sure how we can whether it's safe or not, whether it's secure or not. But we want to take directional bets in the crypto industry. How do we do it? So that's the sense that we are getting. And uniquely, Mudrex is a global product, right? Like we've got users from 90 different countries, and US, Europe, etc. are significantly larger user bases. India is a 10-15% of our audience today. And this same sentiment is actually mirrored over there as well. So that actually kind of sort of goes back to the point that, making money is such a central global human problem. And we've been trying to solve for this across asset classes for millennia now. That the problems that users have are the same, right? Help me make money, don't make it complicated, give me consistent returns and prevent losses. So that's the same kind of sort of ethos with which a lot of products are being developed in the crypto world as well today.
You forgot one very important one, which is don't scam me. Which brings me to my next and I think final question, which is how does somebody how would I evaluate? Are there any parameters I can use to evaluate an ETF? Or look, I know I can't guarantee what the final payout of that ETF is going to be, but just the legitimacy of it, to know that this is not going to be somebody who bounces with my money. What's a simple way to evaluate, like,
okay, is this a trustworthy ETF?
Got it. So in most cases, the ETF, the trust on the ETF is kind of sort of ensured because it's traded on the exchange and exchange has done the job of the due diligence, right? So,
Right.
And that's actually one of the main reasons why Bitcoin ETF is now, so it was such a big thing because the exchange verified it. So it was kind of sort of guaranteed that ProShares is not going to run away with your money.
Sure.
Whoever is managing the ETF, right? Because there are actual consequences to that. And it's not like you're going to some random exchange and buying a Bitcoin and tokens over there. So the fact that it's on an exchange actually does verify it. But apart from that, while talking about these other products, the way I actually look at or try and spot scams is to firstly try and see who are the people. Are they transparent? Are they open? Do you know about them? Is their profile publicly visible? The second thing is, who are they backed up by? Are people, are other larger investors putting in money? Have they been published elsewhere? And so on and so forth. Thirdly, how accessible and how transparent is their infrastructure and information? Is there a community that's following it? Are they available on the community? Are they talking about it? And so on and so forth. And these are some of, the basic rules that you should follow and make sure that you don't get scammed. But having said that, one of the highlight or hallmark things that I always look at is if anyone is promising free money and taking some fees for you for that at the start, that's a hallmark of a scam. Like the by default, de facto scam, give me money today and I will make you money in the future is the default
And
scam.
not
layer.
just in crypto, that's just across, like you said, for millennia. That has always been the scam.
Yeah,
for millennia.
I was looking at this documentary Money Explained on Netflix a few days ago, right? And that literally echoed this exact same sentiment that said that scams have been literally going on for millennia. And it's this exact same problem, or these characteristics are the same for everyone who's trying to scam you.
Well, thank you, Edul. That was extremely informational. And I feel like over the last 20 minutes, I have learned a lot more about ETFs and more specifically why this ETF is such positive news for the crypto industry. Thank you so much for being so lucid. Thank you so much for your time. And is there anything you would like to tell us about Mudrex before you go?
Yeah, so at our goal, at Mudrex, we are trying to essentially just simplify and make crypto investing easy for the average investor. It's a bad world out there. And with crypto, it's literally the wild, wild west. So with products like what we create on Mudrex, like CoinSets, we just make it easy for users to invest in. We give them a one-click investment option to put in money across different themes that they genuinely believe in and scale up. As a product, we've scaled up very, very rapidly. We are backed by some of the best names and today manage close to $15-20 million in assets in assets across the world. So yeah, would love to see you guys come on board and just join in using my referral link, and you can get like a $25 credit as well. So unlike a scam, we are giving you money.
True salesperson, right there. Referral link dropped and everything.
Always.
I already have blind faith in you. I have blind faith in you already. But thank you so much, Edul Patel. This has been an absolute pleasure and this has been illuminating. Have a great day. And for everybody who has been listening, thank you so much for tuning in. And I hope you have a great day also.
Bye-bye.
This has been a show about crypto. Thank you for watching or listening or whatever it is that you did.
Hey everybody, it's been a great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On The Habit Coach, Ashton is in conversation with Dre Baldwin, CEO of Work on Your Game Inc. They discuss the athletic mindset and what it takes to be a great athlete. On All Things Policy, Arjun Garge speaks to Atish Padi about fantasy sport platforms and Karnataka's online gambling ban. On the Life Manifesto, Zarina decodes the concept of emotional maturity. I wonder what emotionally mature people really do. On Nankari, Sadaf and Archit are joined by author Sudha Menon. They discuss comfort food and Sudha's upcoming book. On Say No to Drama, Chetna cuts through the drama around Instagram posts and comments. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Cred, Bank of Baroda, Quarter, CoinSwitch, Kuber, Slay Coffee, Intel, Kotak Mahindra Bank, and Oxfam India. Thank you so much for making this possible.
पेश खिदमत है आपकी शान में हमारे अंजुमन से. Hi, I am Sadaf.
And I'm Archit. खाने का इतिहास, economics, policy, psychology, सब है मेन्यू पे.
Only on the Nankari podcast every Wednesday. सिर्फ IVM podcast app या वेबसाइट पर या फिर जहां से भी आप अपने पॉडकास्ट सुनते हो.